My name is James Hughes. I'm the Director of Publisher Sales at Verizon Media. You might know us as Oath, or AOL, or Yahoo, or the 10,000 other names we've had, but moving forward, we will be Verizon Media. For the purpose of this conversation, Verizon Media does a lot. We have our hands in a lot of different things. For the purpose of this conversation, I want everyone to think of us as an exchange or an SSP that's focused on driving revenue dollars for app developers. And that's developed off of companies called like Millennial Media or Nexage. If that rings a bell with anybody, that's the kind of the technology that's powering our solutions today. Quick hand in the air. How many people are familiar with header bidding? Okay, so it's going to be kind of new. I was going to say who's familiar with in-app header bidding, but we'll save that because we don't have a lot of hands. So yeah, we're going to talk about app monetization, everyone's favorite topic to talk about. One disclaimer that I wanted to put out there, you're going to hear in-app header bidding a lot. There is no header in-app, so could be unified auction, could be header bidding. Just to keep it simple, we're going to call it header bidding. And then one other disclaimer, we have a third guest on stage that did not make it into the packet, Daniel Kenny-Godoy from Wattpad. But based on what I saw outside, seems like he's a little local celebrity here in Toronto, so it seems like a lot of people know him. But without further ado, let's dive in. I'm going to let each panelist do a quick introduction of themselves and their company to start. So Alex, want to kick us off?
Sure, yeah. I'm Alex Campbell. I'm the manager of ad tech and programmatic at The Score. So I'm responsible for all programmatic partnerships, all of our ad tech initiatives, and I oversee our ad operations team as well. And my colleague Belinda was up here earlier, so The Score mobile sports app, and very soon, pending government approval, sports betting platform in New Jersey.
Hi, so I'm Vicki Iverson. I'm the co-founder and CTO of a company called Iversoft. We're actually located in Ottawa, but we kind of started out in Toronto, so good to be home. It's funny, I'm probably a little bit of an outsider on this panel because so that is not the only thing that we do is monetizing apps. We're actually a custom software development company. We're very mobile first. We do a lot of digital marketing, working with a lot of partners. But one thing that we did 10 years ago, back when the App Store was kind of brand new, was publish some of the first solitaire games that were out there. And so those games are kind of still alive and going well, and we spend some of our time monetizing those apps. Out of our team of 40, we have about 3 people working on that. But it is like a very good revenue stream for us, and we really like to focus on what's kind of new and upcoming in that field.
Great. And Danny?
My name is Daniel Kenny-Godoy. I'm the director of programmatic and ad operations at Wattpad. If you haven't heard of Wattpad, Wattpad is a global entertainment company, and our web and mobile apps help 80 million people across the world find and discover original stories, novels, etc. We then use the data and insights driven from those stories to help strike deals in Hollywood and throughout the publishing industry to help turn those stories into movies and TV shows.
Thank you, Denny. We're gonna keep it with you. Based on the lack of hands I saw before, it seems like we need to educate the audience a little bit on what header bidding is, and specifically in-app. So I'm gonna have each panelist just give your 30, 45-second explanation, high level, of what it is.
So my view on header bidding, the quick and dirty way of looking at it, is any technology that enables all of the network and exchange partners that we work with to give them the opportunity to bid on an ad request evenly. So when we send one ad request out there, it's an opportunity that enables everybody to understand that there's value that's coming in from an ad request and give them an opportunity to price it appropriately. This is in direct contrast to the traditional waterfall sort of method that we've all seen using mediation platforms such as a MoPub or an AdMob. And it's sort of the direction that from what we're seeing is that it seems that there's a lot of interest in sort of going this route to help make optimization a lot easier, make it more transparent, and hopefully drive more revenue on the publisher side.
Great. Anything else you want to add to that, Vicki, Alex, does that pretty much sum it up?
Yeah, I think that's pretty on point.
Cool. Then we'll just keep moving along. Alex, to you. Along in the header bidding world, up to this point, you've utilized it within the Score app. Can you give everyone a little bit of insight into exactly what your methodology goes, how it goes into making it work and the success or lack of success you've seen from it?
Sure. Yeah, we spent a lot of time looking at our app in particular, and which kind of monetization methodology is going to work best. And what we've landed on, pardon the gambling reference here, but we are going all in on header bidding in-app, working towards it as much as possible. So we're not going to be able to cut out the waterfall completely, but we're really going to start to trim away at the number of partners we monetize via a waterfall and kind of reroute them into these kind of technologies. And there's a few different reasons for that. But ultimately, it kind of boils down to latency. By calling partners individually and waiting for them to respond, that's less and less opportunity for that ad slot to get filled. And our users, if I think about how I use our app, when I come in for a session, I come in with a very specific purpose. I'm whipping around 3 or 4 different pages to get to where I need to go very quickly. So as managing our programmatic stack, I need that ad to return very quickly. And these kind of technologies help facilitate that. And they also eliminate the tech debt. You don't have to run as many SDKs. And so all those factors have kind of led up into this is the strategy we're working towards. So as part of that, we just completed a major ad server transition in the last month. And so now it's kind of full steam ahead on building out these technology platforms to make sure our stack is as optimal as it can be.
Absolutely. I want to stick with this question because I think everybody on the panel probably has a little bit to say about this and why they're moving forward with in-app header bidding potentially away from the waterfall mechanism. Danny, if you want to jump on that, I'll let you kind of take over.
Sure. So the funny thing about Wattpad is that because Wattpad is a global platform, we literally have inventory in every single country of the world. We also have areas of the app that perform very differently. So those of you in the room that maybe have some experience in doing setting up specialized waterfalls, there's no way that I'm ever going to be able to set up a waterfall that's going to be able to optimize my inventory as effectively as I want to. Sure, we can take a good stab at it, but it's just never going to happen. So the way I look at it is ultimately this is exactly the type of opportunity that technology should be able to solve, and header bidding is sort of or unified auction is sort of the first step in that direction. Now it's just a matter of educating everybody and making sure that we all make the right business decisions for our needs.
Thank you. I'm going to throw this one over to Vicki. I think in a world where it's been dominated by waterfall mechanisms for, say, the last 10 years of app development, moving away from that into an in-app header bidding scenario can be scary for a lot of publishers. And we get a lot of pushback and a lot of hesitation. I'd love you to comment on kind of what publishers should be weary about, as they potentially move that, or to not be weary about and to be excited about.
Yeah, so I think, having monetized with waterfalls for a while, you kind of get to a point where you feel like you've really optimized it, you understand what's going on, and I think it can be a scary thing to almost be kind of giving up that control. Theoretically, it should be better. It should give you more revenue. Having this kind of system manage it for you and manage, getting all of the bids and choosing the best one. But there is a little bit of that trust in whoever you're going to use to provide that solution for you, that they're going to have a good solution and it is going to give you the revenue that you're expecting. So I think there is a little bit there in being a publisher and having this revenue stream, and you're I'm going to just switch what we're doing and hopefully we'll get the same revenue coming out of it, and it being this kind of black box where you don't know what's going on inside of there. It's you put ad requests in one side and you get revenue at the other side, and cross your fingers. So I think it is a little bit scary on that front, but I think also it's the direction the industry is going, and I think that there is a lot of potential there to honestly make more revenue, to see a revenue increase as the industry moves more towards that solution. And I think there is going to be an interim period where maybe you have to manage a little bit of both, of still having the waterfall and also having the unified auction.
Actually, Danny, does anyone else have anything to add? Go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to say, from managing a waterfall, it is a bit of a yield optimization exercise, and the way we typically do it is kind of prioritize the partners based on the average eCPM they've been delivering over a week, 3 days, whatever the time frame you pick out. But in that scenario, that specific ad request that comes up at that point in time may be valued differently across your different networks. And so what this does is allow, to kind of Danny's point earlier, if that network who maybe traditionally is like 5th, 6th position in your waterfall, but they're going to pay first position eCPMs for that specific impression at that specific time, instead, say their bid's going to come in at like $3, and you have a network who's, traditionally averaged out to $1.90. Well, you've just lost, $1.10 eCPM on that given impression. So it kind of gives the opportunity for, network and exchange, et cetera, who's ever going to value that inventory the highest at that particular period of time to kind of like bid on it and essentially win it.
Yeah, makes complete sense. A waterfall is very reactive. You're looking at kind of historic data, being able to do real time, knowing exactly who's going to pay the most for that specific impression at that given time should always result in more revenue for the publisher.
Oh no, I was just going to add that if I put my like forward-thinking technology hat on, I actually really hate when I'm really dependent on any one network to bring in X amount of revenue. We've gone through periods of time where it's like, oh, by the way, and Mobi is driving 40% of our revenue. It's like that's actually a scary feeling, because the second you lose that, you lose revenue from one particular partner, your business could be there could be risks there. So I actually think that it's important to understand the technology as much as possible and lean into where everybody else is, where the industry is going. Do your research, and I kind of want to say it's okay to take a bit of risk, do some experimentation, really try to understand where all of this is coming from, because at the end of the day, if you just stick with sort of the more traditional setups, that's actually putting you at risk in the long run.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I mean, I was really trying to answer the question of what are publishers possibly wary of, but we are definitely planning on adopting this. I was trying to the pros definitely outweigh the possible cons. So.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, going back to what you said about being weary, I think one of the things was, well, who do I work with, right? And seemingly there's a new header bidding solution that hits the market every single day. And I think publishers need to understand, what should you be looking for, and this one specifically to you, Danny, what should you be looking for in your technology partner that makes you confident that they're going to be able to deliver the results that you're looking for?
Interesting question. So for us, it's I mean, the reality is that if you use our app, our what we're trying to achieve is actually pretty complicated. Our tech stack is very, very complicated. We we believe very heavily in creating a very, very deep, strong user experience. Everything that we do in our app is very heavily experimented on. So when it comes to thinking about header bidding or any really any ad tech that we're going to incorporate, the first thing that I always look at is, do these people even understand my business? Are they willing to take the time to learn what we're trying to achieve so that we can do this together? Because I've had countless pitches where people are like, hey, I have this piece of tech. This is how it works. You should use it because it'll solve your problems, as opposed to sort of taking it from the reverse scenario, right? So one is that is this technology going to, is this partner going to spend the time to really understand what we're trying to achieve? That's one. And then secondly, I think that a lot of what I do outside of just hearing a pitch and sort of doing some research is I spend a lot of time talking to other partners as well. I mean, me and Alex ping each other probably once to twice a week to just sort of make sure that we're at least on the same wavelength in terms of what we're doing. Because we want that external validation across the industry of what's actually happening, and that helps give us that much more confidence in making these decisions.
No, and I think that's important. I think in the world of app development, it's very competitive. And what I see when I come to Toronto and I come to Canada is that everyone's working together to try to win, right? There's no reason to keep secrets when this is working really well for me, and share that, because it's going to really help you in the long run as well. And it's refreshing to see. And this is my second time being up at this event in Canada, and seemingly more and more app developers are really starting to make a wave and make a splash, and that's really cool to see. Sorry, I had to throw the Canada pitch in there. But going on with in-app header bidding, to Alex, what advice would you give to publishers in this room that are interested in experimenting with in-app header bidding? And what have you learned, say, about a year into now, kind of testing different solutions and seeing how those results work? What would be that advice to make it work, off the bat, or things to avoid, or things to potentially not do because it didn't work out well for you?
Yeah, I think your point earlier about it seems like a number of different companies come out with header bidder solutions. I think you really have to understand your app, I think, first and foremost, how the ads are called in your app, where they're triggered. Our app is very heavy banner, 320 by 50, 300 by 250, 720 by 90. So it's very much like, in my mind anyway, it's very much like a website inside of an application. And so our app in particular is going to lean more towards those bigger players. So I just talked about the ad server transition. We moved off of MoPub and we went towards Google Ad Manager. And there's a few different reasons for that, but ultimately what we found in the couple weeks that we've been live is, all of a sudden we're getting a lot more spend from AdX than what we had previously. And so it seems to validate that decision. And so you really need to understand your app and then seek out kind of the technology providers that are going to help get to where you need to go. Like, I know, my ad units probably don't match Vicki's ad units or Danny's ad units. So I think when you're kind of going through and figuring out what's the best solution for you, try to understand which of those technology partners kind of mesh best with what your offering is.
Great. We'll continue on. One major winner pain point, depending on who you ask with header bidding, is around unified reporting. Give us your experience, Danny. I know you have some opinions on this, and I think on both sides of the picture, both waterfall and header bidding, reporting is a big thing, and making sure that all of your partners can feed into a unified reporting is important. I don't know if that's always necessarily what's happening in the space, and how important it is for your success.
Yeah. So can I ask a question to the rest of the panel? So, do you know how many logins that you have to go into for every partner that you're working with?
We tend to share logins.
No, but how many UIs are you logging into?
Oh, yeah. So, we solved that problem a few years ago by using one of the consolidated providers. Yeah.
But prior to that, how many do you think you were logging into on a daily basis?
Oh, yeah, I know. We're quite spread out, so, if I'm being honest. So it would probably be like, 10, 12. So yeah, it's hard to kind of get consolidated reporting across like who's doing what at what time.
Yeah, similarly, probably 5 to 10. We actually tried building our own solution that connected to all of their APIs and pulled it all into one place.
So I actually counted this the other day. I have you guys beat. We have 22 logins. So for us, certainly, running a business at the scale in which we're running, being able to understand what's happening across all of our inventory is like probably the most important business problem that we're trying to solve. So, me and my team are investing very, very heavily in making sure that we can like unify and understand all of our revenue impression reporting across every single partner, slice it up across every single country of the world, slice it up across every single area of the app. It's nuts. So that's like sort of the one piece of it, right? Now, the other side of like what we're looking at is we're starting to test some really custom in-app unified auction products that are basically opening up a lot of questions that we were asking previously. So things like, hey, is it possible to actually get real-time reporting? The answer is yes. We're starting to build some products that are enabling us to actually see how, what was our ad performance like across various slices of inventory over the last 15 minutes, over the last 2 hours, 4 hours? What partners have been winning? When have they been winning? Why have they not been winning? How does a particular partner's win-loss ratio shape throughout a given day? Are there any insights that we can pull to really understand, what's working, what's not working? How does that power conversations when we're going back to these partners? Like, I guess the way I look at it is that getting a unified view of like all of your revenue and performance data really only is step one, because we're able to solve all of the technology gaps around all of your ad performance. Then what that actually leads to is it actually gives you more time to interpret that data and make proper business decisions that are going to be able to power your business to the next level. One. Two is that from a relationship standpoint with all of these partners, the reality is that like no exchange partner, no network partner that you're working with never knows how everybody else is doing. So like the more information you're able to share, or the better relationship you're able to build with these exchange partners, only helps inform that relationship. It makes sure that like when they're going back to their sales team, everybody understands what they have to compete against. So I think it's really taking us on a really interesting journey, and we're really excited to see where it's going to go.
Now, I think the key word there is transparency, which is something that's been missing in the market for a long time. And as networks typically had dominated the app space until programmatic really took over in the last couple of years, that was a major pain point of a lot of the publishers that I've worked with over the last 8 years, is just not knowing, what advertisers are delivering on my inventory, when are they delivering these ads, what's the price point those are coming in on, and header bidding should help to really resolve that and give insights to publishers on exactly what's happening and how they're making their money, who's buying their inventory, and why is it working as well as it is. Vicki, we haven't heard from you a little bit. I think we talked about this a little bit, but in your head, what is the future of in-app header bidding? I know Alex had said he's all in, with the goal eventually of kind of moving away from the waterfall. I think you might not necessarily be in that space right now, where you're still, in a waterfall world, but definitely want to move into in-app header bidding. Do you see waterfalls, being completely gone in the next couple of years? And, if so, when do you see that happening?
Yeah. So my short answer is I hope so. I know we asked who knows what header bidding is, who actually knows what waterfalls are and has managed them. Some. Okay. So when I started using waterfalls about 5 years ago, I could not believe that they existed. I was like, this is how ad technology works? It just feels archaic. I mean, once you get into it and start using it, you're like, okay, I see how it works. I see what I have to do to try to make it, maximize my profits, my revenues. But really, I feel like the unified auction, the in-app header bidding is almost like, if you're a technology person, you're like, that's how it should work. It kind of seems like we're almost behind the times. And I know web has already kind of been moving towards this, is ahead of the curve compared to mobile. They are using the header bidding. And I think it's just a matter of time before mobile really kind of gets on that train and gets moving on it. We're not quite there yet. I think there's a ton of different technologies coming out every day. Everybody's in beta. It's all just about to get there. And I think we're really looking forward to it. I think it's going to save us time managing our waterfall. It should make us more revenue. We're not going to have to integrate 1,000 SDKs into our app and have that latency for our users. I think I really hope that it comes very soon, and I think that it will come soon. Yeah.
Fantastic. Since we have so many people that aren't necessarily monetizing apps in the room, I want to do a quick definition of waterfall. We've obviously been talking here a lot about header bidding, but if you ever play a game, or you're playing Words with Friends, or you're playing Wordscapes, you've probably seen there's a banner ad somewhere on the screen, or an interstitial or rewarded video ad that pops up. The traditional way that publishers have monetized this is that they don't work with just one ad network or programmatic network. They probably work with 10 or 22 if you're Daniel and you're logging in every day. And what the waterfall allows is for you to work with all of those partners and make sure that every piece of inventory that you have goes filled, that you're showing an ad every time one is called. And waterfall, think about the way that a waterfall works. You call one, if no one fills, you call two, and so on down that waterfall, right? So it's archaic, and that's exactly kind of why we have these three mobile leaders up here talking about why they're so excited to move away from that technology, move into header bidding, and in the hopes that header bidding is the future and really takes over what goes on there. All right, we're almost down to our time. We got about 5 minutes left, and I do want to give time for questions if there are any. I was going to give everyone on the panel 30 to 60 seconds just to give us their closing remarks. And is there anything we didn't cover on? Is there anything that people in the audience should be aware of as they look to potentially maybe just monetize their apps and not even think about header bidding?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're kind of just moving towards this as a best practice internally, and I'm very optimistic that it's going to work out the way we think it will. To Vicky's point about managing a waterfall, you no longer have to have conversations with your networks every week about what should the floor be this week.
We'll miss you.
Yeah, but we can come to you guys and say, here's where you need to be bidding in order to win more inventory. So just kind of like it makes this in-app header bidding makes things a lot easier to manage from a day-to-day perspective, and then you can start doing other things, looking at deal making, etc. So it just frees up more of your time to start looking at moving the eCPM higher as more and more partners become interested in your inventory.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think so. Kind of to the room who isn't maybe using waterfalls, may you never have to. If you have an app that's out there, you have users, and you're trying to monetize those users. I hope you can jump straight into header bidding, and that can just be the way that you do it, and you don't have to learn how waterfalls work.
I like that. Dan, you want to end it for us?
And I'm personally super excited for the direction that all of this stack is going. I think that between unifying reporting, unifying partner integrations, unifying the way in which you integrate partners into your app and not having to deal with all of these SDKs, it's like full on the right direction. One of the things that we're beginning to explore is this idea of taking full control over ad rendering, which basically means like, can we literally bring and use this technology to create an opportunity to like really make the ad experience like super premium for our users. At the end of the day, we all want to be able to bring like really great experiences to our users. So let's all lean in and try and take as much control as we can.
Fantastic, thank you. Before we open up for questions, if there is anyone in the audience that wants to learn a little bit more about the best ways to monetize their apps, come talk to me, come talk to my team. We have a booth inside. We'll be here for the happy hour. Or if you want to hear it straight from the source and you want to talk to an app developer that has great success monetizing, all three of these people on stage are great resources to talk with.
One quick question I had. I mean, waterfall is such that traditional big beast that we are all trying to fight. At least this panel is trying to fight, except for Vicki. What % is still waterfall? I mean, we hear all these good things about header app, but a lot of publishers and a lot of big exchanges, everyone's so scared in some ways.
Well, I mean, if you look at the desktop world, which is obviously a little bit more advanced, it's basically 100%. If you look at mobile, a lot of the header bidding technologies that are out there are still getting up and released. And so on stage, we have a lot of people that are running both header bidding and waterfall with the fear of any revenue loss. But if I had to take a guess, less than 15%. If you disagree, let me know. I mean, I think a lot of publishers are testing, but no one's all in quite yet.
Yeah, I would say ours is getting up there. Like we've been monetized with or set up with Amazon TAM, Transparent Ad Marketplace, for a couple years now, and we've probably seen maybe 20-25% of our revenue come through there. That being said, with the switch over to kind of ad manager that we made now, the Google Exchange is making up a large portion, and I would qualify that as part of in-app header bidding now, given that their exchange bidding program is having them compete with others in this technology. So with that flip, now we're above 50, and there's still some work for us to do. Like we just switched over, we need to do paperwork with a number of different partners, but I'm optimistic that it's going to make up a significant portion of our revenue in the very near future.
What is the biggest pitch to the publishers? Is it the higher eCPM, one SDK does it all, not millions of SDKs? Like, what is the biggest one pitch that people can take and jump onto header bidding tomorrow?
Simplicity, transparency, more revenue, less headache.
Yeah, I would say from like getting a partner signed on to getting running is now instant. You know, an SDK is, we're pretty aggressive with our release cycles. Like we're pushing out a new version of the app every 2 weeks. So for us, doing an SDK integration isn't that much of a headache because it's going to turn around pretty quickly. But if you have a longer sprint cycle with your app, you know, you could sign that contract and then you're not live for, you know, when you do testing and everything, 2 or 3 months. This one, it's just like email an account rep, they email an account rep, a button shows up, you flick it on, and it starts bidding. So, you know, from the way of like testing partners and you know, figuring out who you're going to work with, turning on and off without the tech risk. You know, installing an SDK, sometimes you're not entirely sure what's going to occur. This one, at least you're aware of what's in there, and it's, you know, the partner is bringing the demand to the table, and that's what you can evaluate them on.